The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to this week's episode of Insights. I'm your host, Alyssa McCann. According to researchers, there have been 14 school shootings so far in 2018, averaging one per week. I got a chance to sit down with Sheriff Kalashevsky from Alpena County Sheriff's Office to talk about school safety. With everything that is going on in the world with, gun control, school safety, these school shootings that are happening, how does this make you feel as a sheriff in a small town?
Well, it makes me concerned with what's going on, especially for our rural schools. Quite honestly, they don't get the patrol that they should, and that's why we've stepped up what we're doing lately.
And you want to go into details about what you guys are doing lately to ensure that kids are safe at school?
Sure. So what we're doing now is randomly we have our patrols going into the schools and making sure everything is safe, going in and talking to the kids, talking to the teachers and the principals, and making sure everything is good with them. Get to know the police officers. Students get to know the police officers as well, and makes them feel a lot more comfortable.
It seems like things are changed or talked about sort of after the fact. It's sad that these tragedies need to happen for there to be larger conversations. So what else do you think that you as a sheriff, your department can improve on to make sure that these kids and these teachers and their parents feel safe?
Well, I think some of the things that we can improve on and continue to improve on, obviously, is our reaction to active shooter situations. I think we need to continue that type of training. I recently talked with a lieutenant from the state police, and we're in the process of arranging that again this year. So we'll have active shooter training again for schools. We're looking at probably going into some of the schools when the students aren't there, and practicing the response. And talking, obviously, is extremely important. I think the parents need to talk to their children to let them know that these types of situations are out there and how to respond appropriately.
And describe your relationship with other police forces here. Obviously, you guys have to have some sort of communication throughout these situations. The thing that happened a couple weeks ago at Ella White, we saw everybody there. It wasn't just one specific law enforcement. So do you want to describe your relationship?
Oh, we have a great relationship with all the agencies, so with the state police and with the city police department. And we have to. We have to because we're a small agency, and we have to rely on each other for help and to exchange not only for the help, but to exchange information on different crimes that's going on in the Alpena area. So a lot of the crimes that are going on in the area are solved. So
this is such a small area here in Alpena. God forbid a tragedy were to happen. Do we have the resources to protect these students? I mean, you see all over the news, the SWAT team comes in. Do we have all of those resources to ensure that these kids will be safe if anything were to happen?
I think we have the means for an appropriate response. The problem that we're going to have, especially with the rural schools, is the time that it takes us to respond to those areas. I'm not going to kid you about that. That is a concern of ours. The only way that we could make them safer is if we had police officers there throughout the entire day. We can't afford that, and the schools can't afford that at this point in time.
Are there any steps that maybe the community or the state, anybody could take to make sure that we could afford something like that, to make those parents feel safe that they may be far away, but there will be officers there?
I think that the Alpena Public Schools are in the process of addressing that issue right now. There are steps that can be taken. There are steps that have been taken. I think some of the steps that have been taken are hardening the schools, i.e. One access for entrance to the schools rather than multiple entrances to for the schools. If the schools can somehow have a buzzer at the door so that they allow individuals in and out, they know who's coming into the schools, I think that would be wise for them. I know that the schools are in the process of updating their security issues right now, and we'll do whatever we can to assist them with that.
How important do you think it is for schools to have security cameras at their facilities? Even if somebody does get buzzed in, it's not to say that they're not armed or they couldn't be going in there for a purpose. How important is it to have those security cameras?
I think it's critical. If we had that capability at Ella White School, we would have known who that individual was. So I think it's critical, and I'm sure that's something that they're looking into.
What can the county do as a whole to improve on those things?
Well, I think for the public schools it comes to funding. What can they afford and what can't they afford? So I think that we're going to be hearing something from the schools here pretty quick in regards to potential millage issues for security. That's not for me to say. That's really up to the schools, but I believe that I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is forthcoming.
Do you think that being in a smaller area, Alpena is kind of more forgotten about for funding-wise, or do you think that as a close community, it's something that everybody can help work towards together?
Well, I think that everybody can help work together with that. You know, after the recent school shootings down in Florida, I received numerous calls on suggestions from individuals on how they can help to assist us. What it really boils down to is liability. Who's going to take on the liability? For example, I received phone calls from individuals recommending that they have quite a bit of training in regards to firearms, and that they'd be willing to volunteer at the schools. And I think that that isn't a bad idea. However, who's going to assume the liability? The other issue that we have with that is, heaven forbid, but if something does happen, how do we identify who the good person is from the bad person? So that's another issue that has to be addressed.
With that being said, you all have a close relationship with APS. You meet frequently to talk about if these situations were to happen. How critical is that relationship?
Oh, it's extremely critical because they have to know how we're going to be responding. They have to know how how we're going to approach doors, and if they are in a lockdown situation, how we're going to identify ourselves to them so that they know that it is the police and not the bad guy. So it's absolutely critical.
If you were to have it your way and the funding could be possible, would you put an officer maybe in every school or every surrounding school even?
Without question, every school would have a police officer, yes.
So I know that the White House wants to pass a bill stating that teachers can carry and they are able to protect their students if a situation like this were to happen. Would you mind giving your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a hot topic around my residence right now because my wife is a retired teacher, and she obviously isn't in favor of that. However, I have a differing opinion, and I am in favor of that. I think it's something that we need to look into and think about seriously. Again, there are issues with that, though. Those issues are who's going to train them, and how do we identify friend from foe.
Absolutely. So do you want to go into a little bit about some more things that you guys can improve, maybe your relationship-wise with APS or some indifferences that you guys may have? What are some things that you can improve on to make sure things happen quickly and effectively?
Well, I think from our response to Ella White School, there was a rapid response to that situation. We handled that fairly well. There's always critiques that we can do and learn how to improve those situations. So I think that as far as our relationship with APS, we have a great working relationship with APS. I think one of the things that we can improve on is training with each other, so that we know how the state police are going to respond to this, the city PD, and likewise they know how we're going to respond to it. We're there already. We already have some ideas of how we're going to respond, but training with each other I think is vitally important, and I think that's something we're going to be doing this summer.
Being in such a small area, it's not often that huge news things happen here. So why is it so important for such a small area to be on top of things like this, to get control of the situation before they even happen?
Well, your last comment is exactly right. Before things happen. So obviously, if there's comments out there right now or opinions about if you see something, report it. So if you see something suspicious, report it. Have us look into it. That can alleviate a lot of bad things from happening. So I think that's probably it right there.
A lot of people have stated, we've gotten some feedback from residents here, why not put veterans in schools? Again, that could raise a lot of issues, or maybe that could help. What do you think about that?
I think, again, that's something that we need to look into. I have no idea. I know that there are some veterans out there who have pretty good experience with firearms. So I really don't know what their experience would be in regards to that. I know that there's all kinds of facets with the military, so I'm not exactly sure what type of training every one of those individuals would have. Again, it just all boils down to liability.
And now, everything that is happening with Parkland, Florida, everyone's trying to make a difference, make a change. What do you think can stop all of this from even happening?
I think it's going to be extremely difficult to stop it from happening, because if you take away one means of a person being able to do this, you're going to, those individuals probably will find another way of doing something like that. I think some ideas might be, we really have to do something to improve our mental health standards nationwide. So I think that's critical. I think it's critical for individuals to report suspicious situations so that law enforcement can respond to those situations. And I think law enforcement in some ways probably needs a little bit more teeth, so that if we respond to something, we can take action on those problems.
Coming up next on Insights, an Alpena High School student gives her take on school safety.